Korean history is in the making. Leaders Kim Jong Un and President Moon Jae-in have signed a joint declaration agreeing to work for the complete denuclearization of Korea. During the first North-South summit in over a decade, the two leaders stated they would seek an agreement to establish permanent and solid peace on the Korean Peninsula. This includes military arms reduction, an end to hostile acts, and the conversion of their troubled border into a peace zone.
Moon will visit Pyongyang in the autumn, 11 years after the last inter-Korean summit. The leaders entered the talks after shaking hands over the military demarcation line, which divides the two nations. These warming relations were noted in South Korean media, which also reported the two leaders embraced warmly after signing a declaration stating there will be no more war on the Korean Peninsula. Kim is the first North Korean leader to set foot on South's soil since the Korean War in the early 1950s. War seemed a real possibility in 2017, when US President Donald Trump's threats provoked a powerful North Korean nuclear test and the launch of an intercontinental ballistic missile capable of reaching the United States. Trump demanded a nuclear-free North Korea, but now the South has taken a softer line, saying the North's nuclear and missile programs mean a new accord would be fundamentally different in nature from denuclearization agreements in 1990s and the early 2000s. Politicians and the public can see the high tensions of 2017 have been replaced by calmer times in 2018.
Should North Korea trust America and disarm? And why would Donald Trump now support talks between North and South Korea when he opposed them in the past? Simple questions with important answers. The Korean leaders said they would seek an agreement to establish permanent and solid peace on the Korean Peninsula. Will that peace treaty go ahead? And what will affect the chances of such an outcome? We asked the public in South Korea. Here's what they told us.
I believe so. This is the last place in the world that still remains divided, and I wish a peace treaty will come true.
It touched me, and it also made me realise that I was actually yearning for reunification, even if I had negative perceptions of North Korea. However, I was also suspecting if Kim Jong Un will change his attitude. Looking at history, there have been too many cases of North Korea screwing up South Korea that had tried to make it work.
I think that the peace treaty will be realised, because it was the first time ever for the North Korean leader to visit the South. So it seems like North Korea was fully prepared for this. I think this time we can have some expectations.
Well, we will have to see. For now, both the citizens and the government cannot trust it completely. It'll be easier to tell after the summit between the US and North Korea, but now is not the time.
There's been talk about it for a while. It seems like this time it came out with positive outcomes. But so far, for citizens like us, there's not much tangible. However, I guess it'll go well this time.
I think it will work, although it will take some time. They say they will make it work this year, and it seems like the government is quite determined, so I think it will work.
I think this is positive. Even if it does not happen, it will still be positive.
Yes, I think that will happen, because the relationship between the two Koreas is changing rapidly, and the summit was arranged last minute. If we maintain this speed, then it will happen pretty soon.
I think it will very likely happen, about 80 to 90%, at least I want to believe. Now the world is involved in this. North Korea has a new leader, but also now it's more difficult for North Korea to play its tricks. There are a lot of witnesses.
There will be some conditions needed to carry out a peace treaty. You know, the US is demanding complete, verifiable and irreversible denuclearization. It seems like there are now some agreements coming out. Besides, North Korea is demanding the US to relieve the long-term animosity, normalize relations, and acknowledge it as a legitimate nation. Negotiations like this are not new, but the past negotiations never went ahead for unknown reasons. However, now the situation is a bit different. Even if it's more of political, North Korea officially announced that it completed developing nuclear weapons, and the US was not able to completely deny that statement. The US had to acknowledge North Korea's nuclear program to some degree. So these are the reasons why negotiations between the US and North Korea is now a bit different from before, opening up to different possibilities.
I think a peace treaty is the next larger objective on the North Korean and also of the South Korean sides. For me, that implies a couple of steps towards that, but I think that's a midterm objective. And my sense is that it's also part of a longer-term North Korean strategy. Regarding the peace treaty, North Korea, I think, is particularly interested in getting this done because right now, in terms of the leadership, there is a particular constellation, and that constellation also will be, barring any disasters or scandals, in place for the next couple of years. And working towards a peace treaty would certainly require some time.
Pyongyang is said to be demanding as yet unspecified security guarantees in exchange for discussing its weapons arsenal. Should North Korea drop its defences against the US threat? Is the US trustworthy? We asked the Korean public.
North Korea is having a hard time economically, so it better consider opening up instead of arguing with its nuclear weapons.
Yes, I think so. I think this will only work if the US does not attack North Korea. The US also wants peace instead of war, and that's why citizens are trying to make the peace treaty work.
From my perspective, I don't think the US will attack North Korea. I've heard that the Korean Peninsula is geographically important, so if there's a war here, it's not a battle between the US and North Korea, but South Korea, Japan, China and Russia. So I think it would be a whole different story from the Middle East or Africa.
For now, it seems like North Korea is not trusting the US. But I guess if North Korea shuts down its nuclear facilities, the US will trust North Korea.
Considering history, North Korea will likely have some doubts about the US. But this time, all three countries, South Korea, North Korea and the US, are involved in this, so I think things will improve. Things will go well.
I don't believe whether US has only good intentions or not, so I kind of understand North Korea's stand. They might be suspicious, but at the same time, they have some sort of confidence that US wouldn't attack them.
Generally, we think the US is stronger than North Korea. Even if the US does not attack North Korea does still have a lot of options.
I've heard that North Korea has been in a relationship with the US while maintaining a better one with China. So I guess it will continue, not just in the US. I just wish North Korea will keep a good relationship with South Korea.
I think North Korea does. North Korea always had this confidence that it won't get attacked by other countries. So I don't think it believes the US will attack them.
Probably it will be hard for North Korea to completely trust the US, but I guess it's more trust in the US now, if not for 100%.
I don't think North Korea trusts that the US, that it won't attack North Korea. That's the demand from the US, which is the major element in the negotiations. So there will be some steps like political announcements, and if we are looking at the case of Cuba and Iran, they set up contact offices, which were treated similarly embassies. These were the steps. I think North Korea will trust the US if they go through with steps like these. Most of all, North Korea is demanding the US to stop its hostility, including the possibility of deploying nuclear weapons, usually referred as no first use. However, the US actually never officially adopted such a policy. It hasn't officially said that they won't use nuclear weapons. Actually, recently the Trump administration once stated that they could use nuclear weapons in case North Korea uses conventional weapons. So it will be about how these demands can change the attitude of the US that will determine the outcome.
I think from the North Korean perspective, it looks exactly the same. They don't feel that they can trust the other side. They feel that their trust in US promises under George W. Bush were ignored, were not fulfilled. And they also, I believe, would not move ahead substantially simply on the basis of trusting the US, especially the current administration, where members of the cabinet move in, move out, where the stories of the president change almost overnight. So clearly trust, I believe, is difficult to build something on for North Korea vis-a-vis the US and vice versa. It might be different on the North-South Korea part. There seems to be at least a baseline for personal trust between the leaders of those two countries.
Does the public in South Korea think Trump is trying to gain credit from this historic move? And why would he be doing this?
Yeah, that's true to some extent. However, President Moon said that President Trump can take the credit if peace is brought to the Korean Peninsula. And I agree that Trump can take the Nobel Peace Prize, as he's played a large role in bringing peace to the Korean Peninsula, if that happens.
Yes, there's an election coming up in the US. And although Trump is a businessman, I think the only achievement is arranging the Inter-Korean Summit.
I don't think so. He may want it, but I don't think he will reveal it.
He wants to take credit for many things, even before, but it doesn't really matter for us. He can take all the credit as long as we can have peaceful and delightful reunification.
I think people will think it's the outcome produced by both current and past administrations of South Korea. If the peace treaty goes ahead, even if there's only one person who made this happen, people will say that it's a collaboration of all administrations, so I think everyone gets the credit.
It seems like he loves to show off. It concerns me if the US will be solely taking care of his benefits without considering others.
Although the US president gave a lot of help to us, a lot of people say it was South Korea that actually did all the work. The US is just catching the waves. That's why I thought before, but nowadays it's doing a lot of summits, so I really don't know, but I guess it's generally positive.
Yes, I think so. You know, President Moon said we can let Trump take all the credit, we just want peace on the Korean Peninsula. And I agree with that. Also, Trump did well dealing with North Korea and deserves some credit, so that's reasonable.
Trump, the US president. I think he personally has a lot of desire. At election campaigns, he shouted for denuclearization, and the American crowd supported him, receiving the Nobel Peace Prize. He was elated. However, I think it's possible that his personal desire or exceptions and the US's overall strategy over the Korean Peninsula don't necessarily align. If we are looking at his personal desire, then it seems like he has that.
미국이 전체적으로 한반도에 갖고 있는 어떤 전략.
Summit with global media attention plays right into President Trump's self-perception, and I think plays right into the type of politics where he can excel. Presenting himself at major events, so that I think is clearly sort of going towards his style as a politician, and allows him to really be center stage. Now, that is ego, etc. Whether that will allow him also to be an effective statesman is something completely different. We haven't seen him in this situation, and what we can do is speculate, but beyond that, we don't really know how he would perform in a situation like this. For the North Korean leader, that's different. We have seen him perform, I would say, almost brilliantly in the North-South summit very recently. We'll have to see how Trump handles it, that kind of situation.
Encyclopedia Britannica estimates at least 2.5 million people, many of them Korean civilians, were killed in the Korean War between 1950 and 1953, in a conflict which has never officially ended. Today, according to the source Global Firepower, over 12 million Koreans in the north and the south are trained for military action. Nuclear destruction of the two capitals would threaten the lives of almost 14 million Korean citizens. There are powerful reasons to seek calmer relations between Pyongyang and Seoul.
Why has Donald Trump changed his mind over North-South Korean talks, remembering that he opposed them in the past, actively discouraging South Korea from starting talks with North Korea? We asked the public.
There have been tensions, but with the Pyongyang Olympics, when the North Korean leader and athletes visited South Korea, now peace is springing up.
Both Trump and Kim have extreme personalities, which initially produced a lot of conflict. But after the conflict and realizing each other's personalities, they saw genuineness in each other. Also, citizens don't want a war to take place.
In the past, North Korea did not show any reaction to the policies. But this time, Kim Jong Un crossed the border to South Korea and North Korea is being proactive. So probably, Trump thought North Korea changed its attitude.
The US has a new Secretary of State. I don't remember his name. Was it Pompeo? It seems like the situation changed after he visited North Korea, and also after the summit with South Korea. Now the US is acknowledging North Korea.
I think the US is following politics, and President Trump too.
I think that's thanks to the Moon administration. We all know how President Trump has ran politics so far.
The US does not like the hostility, not even a bit. North Korea is reacting to the hostility from the US with a bad situation. It seems like now it's working.
I think that's because Kim Jong Un is showing very positive reactions. He's trying to have a conversation.
I think North Korea has been sharing their messages in preparation for future summits or talks to take over the better spot in the negotiations.
It can be a bit related to the question before. I think the US's fundamental strategy over the Korean Peninsula was to maintain the state of division. However, Trump is now a bit unstable in his political standing in the US. Getting involved with multiple scandals, including Russian scandals, the major intention of the political forces around Trump is to get over these scandals, and it seems like they are using the agenda of Korean peace as a way to get over the political scandals. So I can't say that the US changed its stance, but that's what Trump's political intentions are going for. It's his intention to get through a series of scandals by showcasing peace on the Korean Peninsula.
I believe in a couple of years books will be written, insiders will tell us a little bit more, but it seems to be that's a question of character. I don't think he generally commits to a particular issue, to a particular question, to a strategy, etc. I think he very much improvises. I think Trump very much works from one issue to the next, sort of randomly also. So my very strong impression is that plays into, or that is an outcome of President Trump's sort of work style that he has developed over his professional life.
After this historic summit, what's the future for the Korean Peninsula? Here are the hopes and fears of the Korean public.
It'd be hard to guess, but so far, if South Korea and North Korea work together, I think peace will be here pretty soon.
I wish the Koreas will be reunified, and I also hope that North Korea will cooperate for peace and unification.
Reunification, I think it should happen soon. Honestly, as foreigners in South Korea know, South Koreans don't care that much even if North Korea blows up a cannonball, but at the same time we all have fear.
The tension will be eased, although reunification will take time. It will either gradually happen, or North Korea and South Korea will go separate. But if there is an agreement to end the war, then things will be better, including military issues.
The Inter-Korean Summit has brought unprecedented positivity, considering an end to the war in the future. I'm not sure if reunification will happen in my lifetime, but I guess we'll be entering the negotiation process.
I don't think war will happen. There's no benefit. It's a complicated issue, as it's not just concerning South Korea, but also other countries and their interests.
I think China is the country that is making South Korea suffer. It's not like South Korea likes the US, but I wish it would cooperate with the US to keep the peace.
My grandfather's hometown is in North Korea. If reunification takes place, or the separation line disappears, then I'll be able to travel to North Korea. I think positively of the situation when I'll be able to travel to my grandfather's hometown.
I think great things that are unimaginable now will happen in the near future.
아직은 뭐라고 딱 단어.
For now, it's hard to give a definite answer. It's true that possibilities that we didn't imagine, or the possibilities of the peace, are now opening up. It's hard to say if it will go smoothly. Most of all, the US will be the important variable. Its attitude, because Korea relations are not just the issue for the two Koreas, but more of an international issue. As the relationship with big and strong countries like China and Russia is also involved, which makes it more challenging to resolve, as I've said before, fundamentally, the US is not aiming for the reunification or peace for its strategy on the Korean Peninsula, so we will have to see how this strategy changes over time. And I think the summit between the US and North Korea will give us some hint about that.
이제 그 이후
The indicators that we have, i.e. based on history, do not suggest that North Korea goes through all this trouble and then basically says about its own nuclear weapons program, its arsenal and the missiles, well, never mind, we don't really need it. Again, that's the prediction that I would make based on past behavior. With the caveat of nobody saw the Berlin Wall coming down. So it's possible, but I don't think that's very likely. Whether that's just sort of dangling in front of us as sort of a lure or so, I'm not sure about this. I think the strategy of North Korea is basically to do a reform process along the lines of what Deng Xiaoping started in the 1980s, or the Doi Moi reform process in Vietnam. I don't think he necessarily needs nuclear weapons for this, so he could negotiate them away. But what he needs is a drastic change of the perception of North Korea, basically from a rogue state to an investor-friendly state.
When Kim Jong Un visited China last month, in his first trip abroad as leader, official Chinese media reported issues could be resolved as long as Seoul and Washington take progressive and synchronous measures for the realization of peace. In the past, North Korea has said it will denuclearize only if US troops leave the South and America's nuclear umbrella is removed.
As Pyongyang declared an end to nuclear and missile tests and the closure of its nuclear test site, Trump tried to take credit for these improved North-South relations. But others claim Korea itself has decided to unite for calmer times. To them, the Americans are neither trustworthy nor peacemakers. They will watch to see if, as Korea commences plans for peace, America clings to its plans for war.